Hi, good morning, everybody.
Hi, good morning, Shruti.
So, we will just give a couple of minutes for people to join in. And, we have a lot of people join in. But thank you all for joining us and really appreciate your, taking your time off. And we are excited about a great panel and a great topic for discussion. Maybe while people are joining, if others who have joined in, if you can use your chat to just maybe quickly share your name, your organization, your role. So it will be good to hear if you are already in product management. So happy to hear some introduction. Yeah, yeah. Hi, Vinod from Process Drive. Hi, Rohit. Hi, Santosh. Oh, great full stack developer. Yeah. So, as we wait for more people to join in, let me introduce myself. So, my name is Shruti Mishra. I am with nasscom and I am handling all the GCC initiative and driving the agenda for growth for the GCCs. Yeah. So, I think we have some great variety of organization coming in, and it's very interesting, I think. So yeah, we are 2 minutes in, and we have obviously continuously people joining in, but let's respect the time of the people who are already here. And thank you once again, everybody, for joining us. So basically, I'm going to give you a small context about the topic. So the GCC ecosystem has been flourishing in India and it's been doing some absolutely fantastic great work. So today we have more than 1600 plus unique GCCs, and many of them do extremely high end work. Some of them are really at the transformation edge, and there are lots of excitement about the opportunity that the segment present not just for the GCCs but for the product and platform are going to be a way forward in India. And also, product management is going to be a key skill and an enabler to help us grab the opportunity and make the best fit there. Of course, a lot of buzz, around product management, and there's a lot, conversation around the product management. What we wanted to do through this and for the NASCOM, it's been a super important topic. We have a very strong product community, and what we wanted to do is bring those conversation more into our GCC community. And for that, we already did two product webinar with the topic was what really product management is, how should you think about a career in product management, what are those skills, and what is product management not. So this is the third webinar in the series of product management, and we are going to discuss about the innovation process and design thinking principle for product management. Also, we are going to discuss key pillars of the design thinking. So let me introduce, we have a wonderful set of panelists, very experienced. They come from the, diverse background and diverse industry segment. So we have a Chethan Srinivas, Director Product Management from Visa, Ganeshkumar, Director of Product and User Experience from Rakuten India, Abhijit Bendigiri, Director Product Management from Oracle Health, and the panel is going to be moderated by Dr. Maruti, Associate Director, Data and AI Product Management from Ideation. So I'm going to first invite Dr. Maruti to introduce himself and kickstart the conversation. And also just wanted to tell the audience here, please use the chat, use the Q&A tab to make an interactive session. So thank you again, and over to you, Dr. Maruti.
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti, so much. Very good morning to everyone. We have got over 100 participants already. That's amazing. So let's get started. I would invite Abhijit to introduce himself as well as share something that he found interesting as far as design thinking is concerned. Abhijit.
Can you hear us, Abhijit?
Some issues.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but then I'm facing some network issues. Um, it started raining here, so am I audible and you can hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Otherwise, I can stop my video if that doesn't go well.
We can hear you, Abhijit. Please go ahead.
Excellent, perfect. Hey, happy to be here and thanks for the invitation, NASCOM and Dr. Maruti. My name is Abhijit Bendigiri and I work as a director of product management with Oracle Health and AI. Wherein we build products which are mostly a B2B facing products, hospitals, clinicians, physicians, paramedical staff, nurses are the ones for whom we build products for. We have been building close to 80 odd products from India, and I manage a team of close to around 70 product owners, product managers from India. Um, and recently, we have been talking and discussing a lot about design thinking and certain other principles and innovation techniques to kind of improvise, get ahead into the competition. So I come with around 19 years of experience. Started as a developer and transitioned into product management, and now working with Oracle Health. I worked both into B2B and B2C spaces, both into startups and enterprise worlds as well. For me, design thinking is uh, I've seen enough examples where in design thinking and certain specific principles of design thinking, if not complete design thinking, has helped the organizations, the users build products that a are successful from the business standpoint. At the same time, consider customers at the center of everything. So for me, a design thinking uh, is like thinking like a designer, right? And then at the same time, is a set of tools. It's kind of a in the customer centric economy. For me, design thinking is a new arena for innovation in a way.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Abhijit, for your intro. That was amazing. Uh,
Over to
Chetan,
you.
over to you.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Marti and everyone from NASCOM for having me here. Is my audio is good?
Yes, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hey, thanks. Very good morning, everyone. Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Chethan Srinivasa, currently part of Visa as a product manager director. Uh, I'm responsible for platform strategy, and in my last 10 plus years, I'm into this product management. Previously, I was also into network solutioning and that space with my past with Cisco, where we have solved certain hardware to transition to the software, where we have applied some of the design thinking principle, keeping the users at the very front and center of it. And currently, I take responsibility of a global billing platform for all the payments, especially for the acquirers, resellers, bank partners. And the merchants itself, right? So it fascinates me as we evolve from the cash economy to cashless economy and digital transformation and everything that is happening around the lives of human and users, right? So it's an interesting space to be in and applying all the design principles, which is benefiting not only the users but also the business to thrive in this space. So I'm looking forward to discuss more on this topic. Thanks, Marty.
Awesome. Awesome, Chetan. Thank you. Over to you, Ganesh.
Thank you, Dr. Maruti. Greetings, everyone. This is Ganeshkumar, and as a director of product management and user experience at Rakuten, I'm responsible for driving a wonderful team towards building half a dozen and more products that are related to the overall catalog space, which is currently, riding the wave of AI, as you can all imagine. And these sort of products are responsible for catering to multiple users, be it enterprise or eventually the end users working with the search platform. And we take pride in ensuring that we look at the data and give it the right kind of flight, so it's presented in multiple modes. It can be images, can be text, in different modes, so that when customers across different Rakuten services, be it travel, be it the typical marketplace, and different of these offerings of ours, we present products in a very compelling manner, and at the same time ensure that they have a very delightful experience. And Overall, in the last 18 years, I've been lucky enough to enter my career as a product analyst, and there began my journey as a product analyst. And then up until different phases of product management. And throughout, I've been fascinated with user experience as well. The use of human psychology, splash of colors and data, how you analyze all of these together and build solutions to your users. And my journey with the design thinking started as early as I was a kid, 3 to 4 years. And my dad used to make postcards back in the day, different sketches, different colors, and send it to different of our relatives. And I asked him, every year you make this, every card is different. Why? So he said, okay, Prakash uncle likes jalebis. So I'll feature some jalebi and contrasting colors in the postcard. Lakshmi auntie likes swans, so I have a swan in contrasting colors. Right. So there were elements of empathy, at the same time elements of surprise, because every one of our uncles and aunts waited for that surprise as to what card they would receive that year, right? So that's where it all started. In terms of something interesting I found recently, I was in this PVR, and the floor was wet, right? Usually you would see that yellow placard that says wet floor, but people are non-attentive, right? They're on the phones talking away, or busy with their dates, and many people slip and fall. But what these guys had done was they'd taken tiny pieces of plastic and make them look like bananas, and spread it across. So be it elders or kids or anyone, right? The human mind is accustomed to become aware if there's a banana peel, right? So that was a very cool design thinking. And went to shop a stop, and usually some people love to be helped by the salespeople, and some people want to be let alone, right? So they had two segments of shopping carts, one that said white, one was black. And it said, if you want help, pick up the black one, we'll keep coming and asking you. And if you want to be let alone, pick up the white one, right? So every aspect has design thinking in it. So through the discussion, I'll try to bring in all of these interesting examples, and hopefully we have a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Awesome intro, Ganesh. I loved your anecdote about your childhood, sharing cards, sending them, designing them based on the recipient. Awesome, awesome, absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Uh, Great way to kickstart your design thinking thought process, right? Awesome. So, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Maruti Penubothu. I'm with IBM right now. I work on data and AI products, suite of products at IBM. Been into B2B product management for over 20 years now. And as my fellow friends and product leaders have been sharing, Abhijit, Ganesh, and Chethan, they are all working on data, figuring out what users are doing. We build the products that help them synthesize the data and take decisions. So yeah, we are data and AI at IBM. Moving on about one of very fascinating and probably very commonsensical design that I have encountered is the push and the pull you get on the doors. So if you have a handle, you have to pull it, and if you don't have a handle, then you will kind of push the door. And it's a very simple, very commonsensical, but a great design thinking problem, right? So I love that design. um, let's get going with the entire topic. One of the first questions, very intriguing question that I would want to pose to Chetan is, why do you really think design thinking is important for product managers from the perspective of end users and from your own product?
Sorry, I took a bit of while to unmute myself. That's a great question, right? So that's a good question to get started, I guess, right? So this design thinking is all about human centric and user at the front and center, as I said, right? So anything that we build is to solve human needs primarily, and then come wants. Subsequently, it has to touch the lives of people and human as a user, right? So from the end user's perspective, it is very important that we have a strong emphasis on empathy, right? The example, I do love the Ganesh example there on the postcard thing. That is empathy and understanding the user needs, and they can relate well and also understand their habits, their likings, and of course, when we're trying to solve from the product management side of the house, what are the problems these users has versus I sit in a silos, build some product, and go and figure out the product market fit, right? And also the user centric approach leads to creation of the product and services that are truly meets the needs of the end users, so thus resulting in a high customer satisfaction and the loyalty of the users to the product. Then your second point was on the product perspective itself, right? So the design thinking encourages creativity, innovation, and it involves the foundation elements of iterative incremental testing and refining the product along the way, right? And this helps the development of the product to solve the user problems at scale and quickly, and making sure that it has a great element of the user experience that is very ingrained, and thus improves the product positioning and also the overall success of the product. And from the organization standpoint, it is very important that the design thinking leads to most effective development of the product and solution, thus reducing the risk of failures of the product when it is getting launched. And at the same time, the organization wants to be very conscious of the investment of development, right? So that constant iteration process and validation process helps the organization to make sure that the product is going in the right direction, and it is going to be successful once it is there in the market. And last thing, it's foster at the organization level, it fosters the innovation that can definitely result in a new revenue stream altogether. So in nutshell, design thinking is a valuable that benefits organization, the user who is going to consume at the end of it, and the development of the innovation and the creativity here, Marty.
That's amazing. Thanks for a very comprehensive perspective for sharing for regarding why it is really important. Um, I want to pose the same question to Abhijit. Abhijit, can you hear us now?
Yeah, so sorry. I
It's
just joined. Yes, I can hear you now. I hope I'm audible.
yes, yes, you are. Yes, you are. So, Abhijit, question to you: why do you think design thinking is really important for product managers from the perspective of your own product, from the perspective of your end users?
Excellent. Product managers, in my observation and in my experience overall, right, what they're responsible for, they're essentially responsible for delivering value, right?
Mm-hmm,
Now, the value is kind of a very objective term, but in my opinion, value is a customer value and a business value. Now, if you look at the design thinking principles, which starts from the empathizing phase itself, and it usually recommends including customers, your end users, at every stage of design thinking. Uh, Fosters that thought process around what is important from the customer's point of view and
mm-hmm,
what is something that is feasible for you to develop, right? So, what are those important pain points, needs, wants, desires that the customers expect from you as an organization if you have a partnership with your customers, and at the same time be considering your resources, your technological uh, considerations, whatever that you have, what is applicable to be done at the given point in time so that you can commit back to the customers. Design thinking fits really well uh, with all these principles and value principles in my mind, which product managers at the end of the day are responsible and accountable for. At the same time, what I've seen is in the agile world of delivering iterative deployments and ensuring the at every stage, if it is 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's irrespective. But then at every iteration, something valuable goes out and goes to the customers, and they start using it and start delivering and getting value out of it. Design thinking also provide that kind of an approach to the product management, and not just product management, the entire product team, including the marketing team, which is involved in it. So, in my opinion, it's at the very it hits at the very base of why product managers are responsible for the value to be delivered to the business and to the customers.
Awesome. For folks who have been new to product management, here are a few tidbits, and this is kind of uh, to help you kind of synthesize what we are talking about. So, when we really look at design thinking, right? Harvard Business School, in fact, defines design thinking as a mindset and an approach to problem solving and innovation anchored around human centered design. Another formal definition by Interaction Design Foundation, IXD, they say that design thinking is an iterative, non-linear process. Mark my words, iterative, non-linear process that focuses on a collaboration between designers and users. Now, is design thinking really new? Not really. It has been around for several years now, several decades now. However, in the context of IT, design thinking has really got its prominence in the last few years. And this is where, the product management also has a key role to play. Now, on that thought, I would want to ask Ganesh, considering the folks who are new to product management, right? What's your recommendation for them to get into the whole concept of design thinking? How do you think they can get acquainted with design thinking?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Maruti. Yeah, it's always very important to make a great start when it's about design thinking, right? I can't appreciate enough how I grew up. The example that I give with my dad. So, some of the key elements that you have to watch out for is, I know some of this may be cliche, but can't reiterate this enough, is anytime you're presented with a problem or an opportunity, don't just jump into solutioning because you know certain things. Yes, that is highly appreciated. But the key thing is, do you know everything about the user's environments, right? Because let's say someone is designing a login form for an application that's going to let you order food. Now, while that is very simple, right? So you have a social login, you have email ID, password, or a phone number, password, OTP, and so on. But you should be able to zoom out and see where all the user may be using this. For all you know, they may be in traffic in a rush and want to use it single-handed. Or for all you know, they may be having a argument with their spouse and want to order something in a hurry. Or they may be in an office environment where they're trying to gather around and want to share different things, right? So understanding the different environments where your solution is going to be used, trust me, your solution will change drastically many a times, right? Because the ability to zoom out, you'll obviously get groomed into doing this. It's going to be very tough at times, very frustrating, because you'd see a lot of blank spaces. And that's when the key, the next key thing is to observe, right? And many of the greatest design organizations have stressed this. All that they do at the beginning of, even before getting into solutioning, just sit and observe what the user is doing, right? I know of a startup, and the first thing that they do, even to the engineers, is go to the warehouse, sit there for 6 hours a day for the first 1 month, and observe what are the different devices are being used for scanning and how your software is being dealt with, right? So observe, right? So first one is zooming out and seeing various environments and possibilities where the solution can be deployed, and observe, right? And don't be shy to ask the users. Many times the user might be the one who gets you the best solution, right? But that doesn't mean you hand it over to them, but you're partnering with them in terms of solutioning, because that's where you're getting an alignment, right? Apple does this, many of the companies, they do it out there. And what this helps is you get a sense of certain expectations and wiring with which the user is going to use your solution. and thereby you can tweak your solution already. And the more you're making assumptions without vetting it with the users, more the risk of that not getting adopted. And like the classic saying goes, it's not a good design if no one is using it, right? It could be really beautiful to look at, but if it's not being used, it's of no use, right? And through this process of trying to ask them about the different environments, about how would they like to use this, and then presenting your options and showcasing in terms of different prototypes, together brings in the solutioning to that space of empathy where they realize, okay, fine, this person is trying to help me, right? And ultimately what this does is, even if something goes wrong in the first couple of releases, they're willing to forgive you because they know you are partnering with them on the solutioning. So, these are some of the classic pitfalls I went through myself. I learned the lessons hard way, but can't stress on these 3 or 4 aspects enough.
Thanks, Ganesh. Chetan, the same question to you.
Okay, thanks. That's awesome, Ganesh. So I'll just try to add over and above what you just said, right? So for anyone particularly who are very, very new and just want to get acquainted with the design thinking, I would like to give a couple of suggestion, few options, right? So the one thing is that we need to understand the framework in itself. What is design thinking? What are the elements of design thinking, right? So we have this empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. So these are the foundation principles of the design thinking, and just go deep dive into each of these phases, right? So once we understand these phases and your own real world, you can easily go and apply these things. So how to empathize this, what it means by empathizing, right? So understanding the user, as we know that it is all built for the end users at the end of it, right? So we need to see what is that they are doing with the current product, current solution, what is that they need, what is the gap in the current product, or what is that something net new we have to build, right? So that, and then how to define, how to prioritize, right? And how to pick which is the right solution to even to prototype, right? And once we prototype, how to validate, how to test, and then come back and complete the feedback loop. So this foundation really helped to apply to real world scenarios in your own environment. The second thing is that, of course, there are great books, and a couple of them I just want to share on this uh, webinar is Change by Design by Tim Brown, which is very good book. And the second one I would recommend not to miss out is The Design of Everyday Things. So here Don Norman will give examples of a bad design, giving a contrast, and also a good design, right? So this couple of books which I recommend, definitely who want to get started with design thinking. And definitely there are multiple online courses, especially I would suggest if you want to do for Stanford University D School thing that Maruti doctor mentioned, that that is one of the good resources to get a good understanding of the design principles. And also there are plenty of workshops that happens all the time. So see if you can look out for a corporate training or understanding this over in workshop, right? And plenty case studies we can see, and you can benefit from the real world scenarios, how somebody indeed solved uh, the scenarios which the user was struggling, and subsequently the design thinking were applied. Like if you look around, Airbnb is one of the great examples which has applied the design thinking principle. Uber Eats, this is common listing among the best design thinking. So some of these are really eye openers, and how they really applied, keeping the users at the front and center. And all these things, without a practice is not a replacement. So practice, right? So look for opportunity, as I said, right? It's not just developing a product itself, right? If you are not in a software, in outside of the software industry, there are use cases where uh, Ganesh mentioned about the PR cases, right? How somebody is solving outside of this IT industry or software industry. Then again, the West Side example, these are the great examples. Even people use the design thinking in the production line, how to Vasan Eye Care is one of the best examples that ever I've come across, where they have optimized the laser treatment with this design principle in mind, wherein the laser treatments are done in a span of minutes, right? So that way they are able to operate at scale. Definitely there are plenty of benefits and applications. Anybody would like to These are some of my suggestions to get acquainted with Maruti.
Awesome, Chetan. While we are conversing, there are a lot of questions getting posed, and relevant to the conversation that we are having, there are a couple of questions, and I kind of want to bring them right away. So, what are different ways to get continuous feedback from end users? Amit is asking this question, and a similar question is being asked: how to overcome design thinking hurdles in B2B product development when establishing user empathy poses a challenge, right? Um, Another similar kind of a related question is: design thinking also has a pitfall of people using it incorrectly. How do we make sure that products align with enterprise vision and user need, and we are not just picking the create the problem just because it came out of the design thinking workshop? um, I'm intentionally bringing this right away because these are very uh, related to the conversations that we are having right now. So, Abhijit, would you like to chime in and share your thoughts on these?
Yeah, of course. When you think and talk about design thinking framework or principles, users play a very key role into defining your roadmap and into defining what you want to build for your next increment, right? So bringing users early into the stage of discussing, ideating, uh, makes a very important thinking approach. Now, there are multiple ways in which you can do it. And of course, we cannot generalize one specific thing to be working for every organization. It depends on the context where your product stands, whether it's a mature product, whether it's a very early stage product in the market, whether it's a, B2B product, whether it's a B2C product. But overall,
Abhijit, we can't hear you actually properly.
Um, uh, uh, Abhijit,
what I have seen multiple methods in which you could involve users in
um, for the for everyone on the call, let me kind of paraphrase what Abhijit was mentioning. And before I do that, we are really sorry for this challenge of network. It appears Abhijit has just it started raining heavily for where Abhijit is currently located, and he's facing enormous amount of network disruption. So we apologize on his behalf. Coming to what Abhijit was mentioning. Kind of paraphrasing. So, what Abhijit was trying to say is users are extremely important. It's not that you can just kind of ignore users. Users are extremely important for, uh, you know, in almost all the phases of course, of design thinking. More importantly, in the first initial phases where you are trying to understand and, where we are trying to build that empathy and ideate, is where we are trying to unravel the use cases, right? The kind of usage or the business that they are into, trying to understand how they are interacting with our system, what they do in their day-to-day job to meet their business needs, how they are interacting with our system, empathizing with the user, how they interact, what they feel, what they are thinking while they're interacting. Identifying those scenarios is really crucial for your entire design thinking. And the other thing that he was trying to share was, it also depends on the product that you're building. Is it like a B2C or a B2B product? Is it an enterprise customer that you're trying to build it for, or the capability? It may not be really a product that you're building. Sometimes it's just the capability in an existing product. And is the product, what is the maturity of the product? Is it an early stage or an extremely mature product, has been in the market for a couple of decades? What is the maturity of the product? What is the maturity of the users using your product? How much they are exposed to your product also plays vital say into this whole design thinking process. um, there is a similar question coming in. I believe this is from Nirali, who is asking us, a lot of times our customers in a B2B scenario are not sure what they want, so asking them does not help. What do you suggest in this case? uh, I want Ganesh to chime in on this question, please.
Sure, Marty. Thank you. Yeah, enterprise customers are a tricky proposition, right? Because they're sandwiched between what is that they love to use and how they love to use, and what is that their organization is mandating, right? Usually, when you try to sell a software or a solution to a corporate or a B2B, they say, can you give me something quick and dirty and functional that is highly secure and all of those things? But you hardly see them mention about the delight aspect, the user experience aspect, and all of those things. Because when asked, okay, don't you care about this? They say, don't worry, we're going to train them, and there's a certain path or a set of path in which they have to use. They'll get over it. I'm sure all of you would relate to this, be it our employee portals where we go and apply leaves and all that. They're not very delightful, right? They're enterprise apps, but that scenario is changing as of now, right? Because um, users are not only using just enterprise apps, but they're also using different other apps. Could be Uber, could be Swiggy. Different of these applications are always trying to bring in that delight element, right? So the classic, there are a couple of approaches in which you can, take this up, right? You have to find that right balance between what is that the company is okay with in terms of the cost, right? As product managers, it's always challenging to convince our stakeholders about the monetary gains of a UI change, right? They say, no, how will this, affect our GMS or revenue? It's hard to put a number to that, right? So the classic approach here is uh, give them something really functional to begin with, and give 2 or 3 options. So that way there is a flexibility for the users, right? So they feel, okay, one thing is company is mandating me to go through this application, but I am also provided with 2 or 3 solutions. And then comes the feedback from the users because they don't know what they want. So give them 2 or 3 solutions that you believe is more pragmatic, practical, and also economical to begin with as an MVP or a pilot, right? And then you get that immediate feedback, right? And don't be afraid to pilot this as well in UAT, right? Of course, it's not a luxury you'll have all the time. You're fighting with vendors and trying to close the deals. So see if you can provide 2 or 3 options, right? And of course, this will also come with the pricing and everything, but play around with options, and then you see the user's reaction. And of course, with all the fancy analytics that you have, make it iterative, so to say. And this is something that I've seen with a couple of enterprise apps as well. Once the solid functionality is working, then start introducing the delight aspect, because ultimately the user's feedback is also taken, right? And usually what happens with enterprise apps, there are vendors coming to corporates all the time to replace the existing solutions, right? So if the intended users, all the feedback that they give is, yeah, it's just functional, I can do with app A or app B, doesn't matter to me, versus, no, I love this app and this is the only app that I think I'll vouch for, right? So that's the space you need to get into. So summarizing, give them a couple of options to make that segue, and then start introducing delight elements and have conversations with them. Usually that's a problem. People hardly interact with enterprise users. When it's about B2C, yeah, you have all those fancy personas being created, but also understand where this solution of yours fits in the entire journey that they have, right? So that also tells you about the stress levels, emotions. For example, if you're building a solution for a call center, right? They're going through severe stress. So, delight is the last of the worries that they have, right? So they need to clear the queue. So yeah, understanding those things will really help. It's a tough challenge, but once you overcome these challenges, you'll be really proud of what you've embarked on.
Thanks, Ganesh. Uh, that clarified most of the aspects, right? There are a couple of more questions, and so Aditi is asking, if we have a user who are from different age groups, different sectors, how should we think about the design and the case studies? As a user who is 18 years old would have a different thinking as compared to the user who is around 59 years old. A similar question, not really a similar question. Um, I'm taking a higher level of abstraction, so I'm calling a similar question. Okay. Siddhartha is asking, we talk about building customer wants, but if we take example of Gen AI, most of the customers were not aware of it till they were introduced to it. So how design thinking can be used to identify opportunities like Gen AI? Uh, these are questions kind of very close to m- my passion. So let me try answering both of these. I have three words for both of you guys: Ford, Apple, and Google. When I say Ford, I'm talking about what Henry Ford mentioned. He said, if I'm going to ask users what they want, they will tell me that they need a bullock cart or something like that. And he would have never invented a car. A similar thought process from Mr. Steve Jobs. He didn't really go and ask customers what they want. He came up with innovative products called iPods, iPhones, and the rest is history. And you guys are more aware of it. So I will not dwell more there. A third example that I want to quote here is Google. When I say Google, I'm talking about Google search. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is not a contrarian view to what Ganesh has been saying. It's actually a little more level of abstraction. My users, when Henry Ford or Steve Jobs or even when Google went out in building these products, right? Whether that was an automobile or an iPod, a physical device, or a Google search, right? What they really did behind the scenes was they empathized with the user, they tried to understand the problem statement, and they kind of called out the use cases that the users are going through. They were trying to figure out what is the user thinking, what is the user feeling, and what is the frustration of the user. It may not be that they have gone to them and asked, hey, what really do you want? And as Henry Ford said, they would have answered, you know what, I need a bullock cart that goes faster. Probably, not beyond anything beyond that. They may not have even thought about an automobile at that point in time. If Steve Jobs or Apple had gone out and said, hey, we already have a Walkman in the market, what do you want? They would have said probably a Walkman that can play two cassettes at the same time, something like that. Would iPod come into existence based on those answers? May not be. However, what I'm trying to ask you guys to focus upon as part of design thinking is exactly what Ganesh was mentioning earlier. As much as it is about solving the problem, it is also important to take a step back and look at from a bigger standpoint, the bigger picture about what really are users doing, what is their core frustration, what is that they are trying to solve. You're not asking them for solution, you're asking them to define what they are doing. It's our job as product managers to figure out a problem statement, and this is where the design thinking is different from other innovative frameworks that are there in the world. Design thinking is solution based. Of course, it is solution based. Before we jump into solutioning, design thinking also tells us ideate. And ideate literally means define the problem, identify the use cases, and then you propose a solution. That solution can be an extreme innovation like Ford, like iPod, or like Google search. Google search is actually quite simple. It just had a text box and a Google search button. There was nothing else. It was a white background. This is exactly Google search in 98, 99 when they launched it. And it took over all the search engines that existed in that time. Why? The innovation was simple. Okay, so the thought process that went behind it, I need to take a minute there to explain to you. They understood that most of the users did not have high speed bandwidth or high speed internet connection. Most of the users were on dial up connections. That is kind of unheard of as of today. Very slow, probably 28 kbps. Right now, we talk about giga. Okay, I'm talking about kilobits per second, 28. If you have a lot of graphics on the screen, it used to take a lot of time to load. I'm an old school guy. I used internet back then in 95, and it took an amazing amount of time for Yahoo to load, or Lycos to load, or American Online to load. Okay, all of those were search engines back then. AOL. Ask Jeeves was another one. So graphics used to take a long time. So Google did not have graphics. Any colors on the background would take a lot of time to render. So they kept a plain background, default background of the browser, stuck with only a text box, which is very quick to render, and a button. That's it. Did they copy what was already there in the market? No. What did they do? They actually went behind the scenes, understand the kind of demographics of the users, the setup of the users, what they were trying to do, how they are interacting with the system. They kind of listed that out. They understood the things that were happening. I wouldn't say those are pain points. Today it look, and in hindsight it shows as pain points, but in those days we didn't know that they were pain points. It was Google who figured out that, can we do something about it, right? And that is how they came up with this design. So it is not necessary that when we say that users empathy is needed, you have to talk to users and ask them for the solution. No, what we are really tending to share with you is, when you go and talk to users, empathize with them about what they are doing. It's our duty as product managers to identify the problem statement and then get into solutioning. Now, moving on, I have another question,
Yeah.
and this is for, yeah, Abhijit. Yes, please. Okay. We are having hard time hearing Abhijit. So, in your experience, Chetan, what are the classic traps or don'ts that one should avoid when getting started with this whole process of design thinking? There are few of our audience who have been asking similar questions. Uh, you know, uh, so Chetan.
Sure, that's a great question. I think that's something that we should definitely pay attention and focus once we are applying these design principles here, right? So as we all talked about, that user is at the front and center, and skipping the empathy with the user is going to be a disaster in this journey itself, because we are telling that this principles framework is meant to solve the user needs. So hence the skipping of empathy, not talking to the end user who is really going to use this product and solution, is something detrimental to the start itself. So we should make them part of our journey of design and solution and test process. So for an example, I think everybody, if you go and see the merchants on the streets, that theliwala, right, I get amazed that soundbox, that innovation that we have, right? You can see any nook and corner in India, right? So you have this merchant, and most importantly, right, you started hearing from Amitabh telling that, hey Devi or Sajano, the payment has been made, right? So in 11 languages. So that is the level of user empathy and the localization that product has gone to, right? So that is a level. And now that the convenience that is offering for that merchant who is sitting and selling the vegetables, they doesn't have to keep checking the mobile in case if they need to know that whether payment is made, this notification alert, right? So this is all coming, how it is, because somebody who is developing that product has sat with that user who is going to use this soundbox and understood what they really want, rather than skimming through the screen and know the payment has been repeated. That is something that is very important, that we should never ever avoid when you are developing a product, right? And second thing is that I would love to say here is that we are great, right? So we come out with ideas, fancy solutions around it, right? We don't want to stick to that unless it is really solving the end user needs and wants. So never ever settle for an early solution or early idea, right? Just keep validating unless we believe that that is the right thing that to go about and commercialize. Then I mean, the third important factor I would say is the prototyping. Not doing a prototyping, right? It could be as simple as putting that in a visuals and going to a customer who is going to be like, I know that we have this use case of end-to-end journey when it comes to an enterprise user, right? They want to see how the onboarding happens, how the users will use the product, and how conveniently they can accomplish their job in less time, right? So having this narrative, we don't have to wait for the product to be developed and presented to the enterprise, right? So all we can still do is that take the prototyping of that and bring that user who want to use this, make them go through this what we call usability testing, right? Even before developing a product, take these tools. Advantage of it is very low cost. We can just build through mockups and make them click through the journey as if they are playing with the product or using the product. So the behaviors are monitored. There are many tools to monitor the behavior, like whether they are feeling comfortable, they are happy about the feature, or it's a distress for them when they are using these clicks, right, and not able to understand what to do next. So these are all very low cost frameworks and tools which we can apply in the process of product development, and these are all under the hood of the prototyping, right? So validation, timely feedback, adequately testing the prototype helps to build it right from the get go. And during this process, it is important to have this feedback, verbal and non-verbal feedback, right? So some clients are comfortable sharing the feedback. Some you have to understand from the body language. The example that I talked about is usability testing, right? You have entire room set up with cameras, and the product will be in front of them, or the mock-up will be in front of them. The user will go through. The user doesn't know what is this product, and they are asked to discover and see whether they are able to complete the whole journey. So this non-verbal feedback is so critical, that at what point the user spend too much time on the screen, for example, if it is a UI based product, then how much time they spend to accomplish a task, or they dropped out, right? So these are some of the things that we need to make sure that verbal and non-verbal feedback during the design thinking principles are very critical for us to not to ignore, right? And the next important thing is that iterating, right? Now we receive the feedback from the client or the user, and now we have to iterate, right? So now once we iterate, we need, because we are acknowledging that that is what user wants, and not that what we are building that user is going to consume at the end of it, right? So we appreciate the feedback. That is the whole purpose of this principles and the framework, is take the feedback, apply and implement, and go back to the user, right? Now is that really solving their needs, right? And it's helping them to use the product, whatever they want to accomplish out of the product, right? So having not iterating is not an option, right? So make sure that we iterate it. And when we are developing this or applying these principles, it's not a task to be done in silos, right? We have to make sure that this is along with the environment that we talked about, right? There are products which need to be taken out, like if you are building some temperature sensitive products, you need to make sure that it is used in those extreme conditions, right? And then making sure that it is tested in the environment where users are consuming this. So hence it is important that we go out of our development zone and have this tested in the area where the users are going to be using, and through this process and get a holistic feedback and solution. And finally, let's not be rigid, right? When we say that, hey, this is my idea and this is my product and everybody will use it, right? So that's not how it's going to work. So we need to be very flexible, and of course we already mentioned that it is a process is a non-linear, right? So hence it has to be a constant loop back a technique that we need to have, so that especially in the early stages, so that we can make it quicker and faster, And also we know that we need to be failing fast and failing cheap, right? You can't spend all your money, especially when it comes to a startup or entrepreneurship world, where we invest all our money to build the product and then go and validate, right? So we should be very frugal in our mindset and make sure that the product are built at very low cost and get it validate as much as early as possible. So hence we can't get stuck to your idea and product thinking that anybody will come and buy this or use this, right? So hence the last summarizing note is that design thinking is a mindset and it is not just a process. And we need to embrace the spirit of empathy, keep doing the experimentation, iteration, and deploy this design thinking successfully.
Great answer, Chetan. Thanks for sharing your experiences essentially in that in the way you have articulated. Ganesh, you have more to add to it?
Sure, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Chethan. Can't reiterate on the iteration part enough, right? You got to keep doing that. Adding to what Chethan already said, right? Some of the don'ts are, we invest a lot of time in terms of getting our personas before we begin solutioning, right? But somewhere down the line, these are forgotten, right? You say, okay, here are 3 or 4 personas. I've done my requirements and I've worked with the designers on the designs. Boom, it goes, right? But personas also evolve over a period of time because there's a lot of guesswork in what you do. And like, there was a question, I have a user of this age, but what is to say that there's another user of a different age? You want as many users as possible, right? So you never know when the user base might really surprise you, because many apps and solutions that we have, you built it for purpose A, and then you have these surprising users who come in and start using it, right? For example, who would have thought that WhatsApp is the most popular video calling app amongst elders in India? You go on, metro trains, public, they're using it for, video calls. No one could imagine that, right? So a lot of these unintended personas might seep in, and that's where you have to keep evolving your personas through the development cycle. Even after the release, you must keep doing it, right? Because you never know how they change. Your app or solution might have gone through its journey of 3, 4, 5 years, but the users always remember they're subjected to tech, they're subjected to different behaviors, influences, and different other solutions as well. And their expectations and their behaviors has a telling impact due to all of these, environmental aspects that they're going through. So, not evolving the user personas would be a disaster. Next one is never leave your users stranded. So let me elaborate on this a bit. So let's say, I am working on a catalog based application, right? So where I fit in with my application is the user searches something and they click on the search results. Boom. I try to present the product catalog in a more compelling way and a delightful way and so on. But that is not where my job ends, because after this the user is going to use the catalog to add the product into the cart, and then the payment gateway, and then so on. I also have to see what is the experience that the checkout team is giving, what is the experience that the payment team is giving, because as far as the user is concerned, for them all of this is just one company, right? Here there could be 20, 30 teams coming together to make that purchase happen. But if you're not cognizant about different user experience elements of the journey that precedes and the journey that comes after or follows up, that's going to be a disaster, right? Because let's say you had a basic user experience, but what if the payment gateway or the checkout team had a delightful one? The user suddenly starts seeing there's a difference, and maybe you might have a churn, right? Eventually, when the analytics team looks at this, there could be a lot of people just adding things into cart and not going through the payment because there's a flaky experience, right? So always ensure that you're not leaving the user stranded in a different experience. Another aspect to this is, so we were working on an application where the transaction has to go through, but many times we're dependent on the third party to fulfill that transaction. And if it involved monetary aspects, then the user obviously would be worried, right? So one of the things that we tried to do is introduce a notion of mezzanine floor, if you will. So it's neither ground floor, it's not first floor, right? So what we tried doing is give them virtual points and say, don't worry, your transaction of $500 didn't go through, but we have immediately credited 500, can be any sort of a virtual currency, and say, we have it sorted out from here. We'll try to work it out with your bank, right? Many instances you've seen, let's say the e-commerce platform says, oh, go sort it with your bank. You call the bank, they say, here is a transaction ID, go work it out with your e-commerce portal. There comes a bad experience, right? So much of the users may not even come back for no fault of yours, right? So try to create these mezzanine floors in the meaningful points and touch points of the user's journey, thereby establishing the trust, right? They didn't get their $500 back, but they know you care enough for them and you're going to solve it for them, right? And that not leaving them stranded across those two aspects would be very critical. We always look at the happy parts, but then how are you handling the failure and breaking points, right? So typical example is error messages, and a lot of these cases, it's really frustrating to the user because they would have tried so hard to search something, cherry pick, talking to their family, and then adding something to the cart and moving forward. But if that doesn't go through, it's a frustrating one, right? So we introduced the notion of having our mascot, which is the Rakuten Panda, in some of the error pages, because that way the user sees, okay, I'm not alone here. Because every time an error page comes, many users feel it's techie and nerdy. They don't know what to do, right? So introducing some of these elements to soften the blow in error cases will take you a long way in terms of the customer loyalty and the experience. So yeah, I'll leave you folks with those 3 pointers of not to do.
Awesome, awesome. Don't haves. Um, just adding or bringing both Chethan's and Ganesh's point together. It's all about test, test, test. You have done everything in design thinking. The most important aspect before you go launch it, release it in the market, test it. And when you test it, it's not just the happy path scenario. We as product managers should be taking good care of all the exception scenarios, error scenarios, understand what kind of interaction or the message the system is telling me, and figuring out, is it really relevant? Is it something that I can work with? Is it an action that I can take from there? Is there a way to go back? Most of the products do not have a way to go back or go anywhere. I'm just stuck. Give a way for me to navigate out of it, right? How do you come to know about it? Only when you test, test, and test, right? So now we would want to take a lot of questions. We have got a lot of questions. So three questions are kind of very similar. Uh, an anonymous attendee has kind of asked, how do you handle conflicting opinions or priorities from stakeholders when deciding between adding a new feature to improve user experience and addressing a technical debt that may impact product stability? One question. Second one, this is from Badri. What are the views of the panelists when it comes to design thinking while building apps or solutions that are internal to organizations? We have often seen or heard about the increased focus or attention for apps and solutions that are built for external customers, but not so much for apps that are internal facing. Any thoughts and or inputs on that? I think this is relevant because again, this is about stakeholders, internal versus external. So again, stakeholder related. And the third one is Suobrata. Users deviate from their asks and requirements most of the time. Personas don't know their expectation, and finally the product teams and UX teams are collaboratively making decisions on business requirements. How do you handle these scenarios? At a little abstract level, I believe all the three are related to stakeholders and managing stakeholders. So thoughts on these, Chetan?
Yeah, I mean, this is great question. I love to take this. Primarily, I'm deal with all the time with this, right? The dilemma, right? So now I have the stakeholders who come and say that, hey, I need to have this tech debt to be incorporated in the upcoming releases, and at the same time, I have the business drivers for have stickiness for our users. It could be from the experience standpoint, or it could be generating some additional revenue, right? So balancing these three is very critical, because when it comes to making a decision, right, couple of things we validate, right? First thing is that, is it affecting immediately for any of our clients, right? So that is something. If that is affecting, that means that our existing product is underutilized because of this problem. The secondly, what we are looking at is that, let's bring the data, right? So the data driven decisions are also equally taken into prioritization among these three things. If the data says that the tech debt is going to cause reliability issue, what it means here is that services unavailability of it, or it is not responding timely in terms of giving the delay that is affecting the end user, like the example that we talked about, right? When you're doing checkout for that product, right? So you need to have a seamless experience between the multiple parties. If one of this party is not responding timely, and that is because of the tech debt, then exactly we have to kind of prioritize that, because this is coming in a value creation chain, right? And the third thing is that the user is reaching out to us frequently, and many users are reaching out frequently on the same problem, and we know that the cost of support is high, right, for that kind, and people is dropping out, and that is affecting our transactions or volume on the platform. So in all of these things, the first thing that comes foremost is that the data which is affecting us in terms of revenue and the retention of the customer, that data is what is going to win, not any of these stakeholders. And all the stakeholders will be acknowledging that whichever is has the highest value with the least effort is what we are going to pick in this. And this is almost the common thing that we deal with, uh, and that's what seems to be working for us.
Awesome. Um, Ganesh, can you chime in on how do you handle when users are deviating? This is a question both from Subrata and also from Ramnish. Users often stray from their initial requirements, with personas often unaware of their own expectations. Consequently, it's typically the products and UX teams that end up making decisions on business requirements. How do you suggest managing such situations?
Sure. Yeah, good one. And product managers land into this situation. Doesn't matter what level you are in, right? Many times stakeholders themselves say, I'm the user myself, competitor is doing this. What do I do? Right. So yeah. So the first thing that is important is to have a common understanding or an artifact. Can be any damn thing, can be a piece of paper, can be Word doc, can be PowerPoint. Put things in visuals. If the solution is just APIs, but still put some process flow, right? Because a lot of time is spent in verbal conversations, and everyone has their own visualizations in their mind, especially with the users, right? Establish the problem statement first, because many times, like Dr. Maruti rightly said, if Ford went and asked people, they said, oh, I'll need 100 horses. 100 horses was not their ask. Speed was their ask, right? So many times reiterating or talking it back, let's call it reverse knowledge transfer to the users, right? Telling them their own problem statements in multiple different ways, you'll be stunned to see the way they change. They would say, oh yeah, this is exactly what I meant. You stole the words out of my mouth, right? So that is the key. And never jewel case the problem statement immediately, right? Take it slow. And of course, you may not have the luxury of time all the time, but rephrase the problem statement in 3 or 4 versions and tell the customer, is this exactly what you mean, right? And then there's less likelihood of them to change different ways, because they now know that you're finalizing the problem statement with them. Second one is also tell them what are the different earlier versions of your products that existed. If you don't have an existing version of the product, it's okay to take a competitor's product and say, you know what, here is something how it would look like, right? Many times some of the users say, you know what, I want LinkedIn kind of app. So they don't want LinkedIn, but they want LinkedIn kind of app. What do they expect? Maybe gamification. You don't know, right? So identify those starting points and give them an expectation of this is how it might look like, right? So give them an experience of the feel. And also, even if it's low fidelity wireframes, sketch it up, right? Going back to the aspect of visuals. So when you start doing this, you have a repository of what is getting binded with the users, which you can now start using with the stakeholders, because ultimately stakeholders, yes, they know revenue is required, but if the users are not aligned, then convincing them becomes all the more harder, right? Because at the end of the day, even they know customer is the king, right? So yeah, these are some of the few things that are really useful. And throughout the journey, with every release, keep reiterating that, hey, Mr. Customer, in our conversation, here is what we did, agreed upon, and here is the release. Give them walkthroughs, right? Many times we forget that. Give them enough walkthroughs, make videos, and keep going back to the problem statement and ask them, right? It's no shame at all, because that can evolve midway. It's okay to evolve midway, then go all the way till the end, and customer says, oops, I don't think this is what I meant. The classic diagram you would have seen, that the swing with the tire and everything happens, right? So give the help the customer get more clarity on the problem statements, and a lot of these challenges can be well tackled.
Awesome. Thanks, Ganesh. Um, we do have like time for one last question. Rather, we are running out of time. So let me call Chetan to give his concluding remarks. Um,
Yeah, I think just to reiterate, right, the foundation for all this design thinking is about innovation, and creativity is about creating the culture for this very foundation, and having this regularly, the creativity and innovation, and it's a mindset and not a process, and emphasizes on the user, who is the end consumer of your product and services. Keep them, empathize with them, collaborate with the team for uh, ideating, prototyping, and testing. And finally, right, it's the journey that takes to build a better product. When we build, they will come, right? So with that note, thank you very much, everyone, for having me here. Thanks, Dr. Maruti and team.
thank you. Thanks, Chetan. Ganesh.
Sure. If I were to leave you folks with a couple of statements, first one is what Bruce Lee said. You're given something. What you have to do next is retain what is good, knock off what is bad, and add something of your own and make it better for the next person to use it. Right. So that is very crucial. And that's where a lot of things that we've spoken today, be it testing, iteration, conversations, this is the underlying statement, right? And that will help us all build solutions or designs that are very non-intrusive, and a lot of situations that can go wrong, things can be yet subtle and yet move the users to the right spaces that we intend to. And don't be afraid to mix human psychology and a lot of other aspects such as branding, many frameworks, but don't be rigid to the frameworks, right? Add something of your own and use them as a guidance, and try to create solutions that are more towards do it yourself, right? Because you would have had certain understanding of the user would have had a certain expectation and understanding of your solution. The common place where you would meet is those tiny elements of DIY and gamification. And some of these things can take you a long way. So great discussion. Thank you all for the great forum, and happy to take up questions offline as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ganesh. So just as a conclusion, right? Kind of paraphrasing the entire conversation that we have been having, a remarkable conversation, I must say. Um, Design thinking, the entire concept, the entire thought process of design thinking is it's actually empowering us, the product managers, right? It is to gain a profound understanding of user needs and pain points. Empathy is our superpower. Please remember this. Empathy is our superpower. It will help us uncover invaluable insights into user desires and frustrations. Both are equally important. We need to know their desires and their frustrations. These are the ones that turn into products and capabilities that will fulfill and, in fact, even exceed customer expectations. You will There are implicit requirements, there are explicit requirements, and there are some exciting requirements, right? So you will bring excitement for the users if you really show empathy. That's all from us. We do have a lot of questions. So since we are running out of time, we recommend that you post these questions on LinkedIn, on NASSCOM's post, and we are more than happy to answer them. And thank you again for joining us, taking time from your schedules and listening to us. Hope we were able to help you share. We have shared our experiences. Hope our experiences have helped you learn a bit more about design thinking, maybe clarified a few of your thoughts, or maybe even validated many of your understanding as well. So thank you so much for joining in. Over to you, Shruti.
Right. So, all right. It's wonderful as we, finish up the webinar. I want to say a big thank you to the leaders and everyone for being here today. So your questions have made this, really, valuable and insightful. So I'm excited to, let you know that we have another webinar planned for the May and June, and we'll bringing more, ways to make products successful in changing the market. So keep an eye out of updates for us on social media page. And thank you again for being a part of this. And I can't wait to see you in the next sessions. So thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you, Shruti.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, leaders. Bye bye.
Bye.